Hi everyone, it's Shannon, aka QB Crossing, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are back with another speed build, and I decided to work on the museum today because I don't know about all of you guys, but I always find the museum really overwhelming to work on. It's such a big building, and especially for natural islands, sometimes it just feels a little bit out of place. So I decided to go all in with the terraforming today. We're gonna do some sunken waterfalls on each side, a land bridge leading up to it, all that fun stuff. So if you enjoy content like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button for a speed build every week. But other than that, let's just get right into it. So with a big terraforming project like this, it's always a good idea to start with your terraforming first. At least for me, I try to get the overall layout of the area kind of terraformed before I do any decorating. This way we don't have to kind of fix any of that up later. But when it comes to the sunken waterfalls, I'll be doing those as I go. I find with those it's a lot of trial and error to get the right look that I want, so that it doesn't feel too symmetrical, it feels natural enough. But basically what I'm doing now is setting up the land bridge. So I'm just kind of doing some rough terraforming leading all the way to this back section that I just started terraforming before. So we're just going to play around with exactly how big we want the land bridge to be, make sure that it feels centered enough when I place the museum, and then set up this back area. So this area of course we'll need, which will lead you to the land bridge, and then we'll start decorating all of that stuff once we get our terraforming done. So I'm gonna let you guys watch me just terraform for maybe a minute or so, and then I'll be back to talk about the rest of the process. So now that the rough area that I'm terraforming is really coming together, we see that land bridge, we see both the left and right sides really starting to take shape. I'm going to get ready to place my museum and make sure that it's just aligned with that land bridge, which it is. I'm really happy about that. And then I'm going to continue on the left and right sides of the museum with a smaller cliff. This way we can have 2 levels of waterfalls on each side, and this will of course really add to that sunken waterfall effect. The more levels that you have, the better, and the more angles that you can get looking at it is always a good idea. So you'll also notice that when I go to the left and right sides of the land bridge, I'm filling in what I'm doing now, which is this like outer right and left areas. This way by doing this, we can kind of close in the area, and then we can also get a sunken waterfall on the left and right side rather than just focusing on like one level of water underneath the land bridge. So you'll kind of see that come together, but I always think it's important, like the more angles that you can get going into your sunken waterfall, the more interesting it will be. But it definitely is a lot of trial and error when it comes to sunken waterfalls, because you really want to make sure that it doesn't look like too symmetrical if you're going for a natural theme. So you'll see once I get into the waterscaping how I go back and forth with some of that. But the main thing is to get your overall layout kind of set up. You want a lower layer as well as 2 layers above it, and then you definitely want areas from the left, right, and back where you can get different views of it. That's what makes the sunken waterfall really cool. So getting started doing some of this waterscaping now, kind of getting an idea of where I want the water coming from. And once you see me like going around on different areas, standing on the land bridge, standing behind, you'll start to see these sunken waterfalls looking really cool just from the different angles and perspectives that you can get. So kind of like how we did some really rough terraforming with the land bridge and the whole area, I'm doing some rough terraforming with the water as well. I'm not sure what exactly I want this to look like yet. I might want some little pieces of land in the middle of it. So I want to just at least get a little bit of my water started and then go over to the other side and do the same thing over there as well. But once you start decorating and start seeing your waterscaping coming to life, I think it will really just come to you, and you'll figure out what exactly you want to do for the area. So again, like I said, when you go up on different levels, that's when you can really see the sunken waterfall coming to life. So you'll see me doing that throughout, where I'll just kind of open up my camera and see what it looks like from different angles, just to make sure that it is coming together how I want it to look, and playing around with water in different sides, like the left, the right, behind, everywhere you can think of, just to make the whole area as interesting as possible. So I'm just gonna go around, really play with this waterscaping and terraforming. I am by no means ever getting this perfect on the first try, so there will be a lot of trial and error in this video, just of me playing with the waterscaping and different ways of laying out the shapes. So you guys can just watch me do this for a couple of minutes, and then I will be back to talk some more about it. As I said that there was a lot of trial and error, I started this right side cliff and I really didn't like how symmetrical it was looking. So I ended up just getting rid of some of the waterscaping that I did, and I ended up making it look even more symmetrical. So I decided to take a break from the waterfall for a moment and work on this lower layer of water here. So we'll come back to that in a minute or so, but it's always okay to kind of come back to something later. I also think I should let you guys know that most of my speed builds take 2 or 3 days, because I find that if I just work for hours on end, I start to just get really kind of frustrated and not as excited about the area. So I always like to start an area and then come back to it the next day. It feels less overwhelming, especially with a big project like this. So even though these are speed builds, I don't want anyone to think that I do this in like 20 minutes, because that is 100% not the case. So as I kind of continue this waterscaping here, and I again said that I didn't really love how the water was looking on the second level, you'll see me kind of fixing this up until I get to something that I really like. I think for me the big thing is that I don't really like symmetry, especially when it comes to a natural island like this. So I'm a little bit happier with how this is looking now. And I also have been playing a bit with having these little pieces of land within the kind of, I guess, lakes at the bottom. If you've done land bridges before, you may have done something like this, but I always think it's really fun to put a flower or a bush on a little piece of lands, like that one little tile in the water, especially since we can't put things in the water. It always helps to add a little bit of dimension and life to that area. So it's pretty exciting now that I'm seeing the waterfalls on each side come to life, and I know that there is a lot of terraforming that I still need to fix up, but the overall area is really starting to come together. So just a couple more fixes before we get into decorating. So I'm just going to continue with this terraforming over here. I realized that I didn't want this area to be quite as big, and I wanted just to have it feel like a little bit lopsided almost on the left and right side. This way they're not like, the water's not starting at the same point. Just like I was saying before, I really didn't want this to feel too symmetrical for the look that I was going for. So you'll see me just going around and really kind of refining everything, but we do have the overall look and shape going on. So just a couple more finishing touches on the terraforming, and then we'll get into some pathing and decorating. So just as I thought that I was done terraforming, this idea popped into my head for a diagonal bridge leading up to the land bridge. And I kind of thought it would be interesting because then I could have water flowing from each side, and the bridge always just adds a little bit of visual interest for me. So I'm laying out where I want this diagonal bridge to go, and then it'll be kind of cool because it will lead into these like backwards waterfalls that lead into the Sunken Waterfall, or that like lower layer of water. So I decide on putting a bridge over here, but it does take me a little while to get the exact shape that I want, because diagonal bridges are a little bit tricky to begin with, but I didn't want it to be quite so big. I wanted it to be the smallest bridge possible, which is I think about like 3 or 4 across. So it was a little bit too big when I first tried it out. So just fixing this up here, then we're gonna get some backwards waterfalls going into where our main water source is, and then I think we will be very close to done with the terraforming and can get into some decorating. When decorating is always place my trees around the area so I know what I'm working around, and then I get started on my main pathing, which I am using this cobblestone pathing that I really love and I've been using a lot. So I'm breaking it up in a couple of small circles. This way I can still have some space in between the paths for flowers and other little stones here and there. So I think that the decoration will be pretty minimal in a way. Like, it's really just going to be lots of log stakes, flowers, bushes, and then other little elements, maybe like a wooden stool. We'll kind of just like see what works, but like I said, this is supposed to be a really natural area, so I want to go all in on the natural elements, which would be more of the trees and flowers and things like that. So I'm going to play around a bit with decorating. We'll do some of the cliffs, we'll do the overall area, just thinking about like flower combinations and bushes and just where exactly the trees should go, because the trees will actually add a lot of dimension to this area. So you'll notice that I'm using different stages of the trees, some smaller trees, some kind of medium, some large, and that really helps with adding different heights. So if you don't know how to stunt a tree, if you have a smaller tree that's in a younger growth stage, you can just plant it and plant any fruit behind it. So any fruit except for a coconut will work, and then the tree will not grow. So it's really nice to have different sized trees, especially if you have a natural island or a forest core island, something like this, where you'll really want to go all in on those natural elements. So continuing around here, like I said, really simple decorations like the butterfly models, because I really want the terraforming to shine, so we don't have to do anything crazy when it comes to placing items or anything like that. So you can already see the area starting to come together and the overall look for it, but there is still quite a bit that we need to decorate because this area is so big. So I'll just be going around and decorating as much as I can. Even these little lower levels here, that will really help a lot if you're doing sunken waterfalls, to add some flowers or bushes, anything on that lower level, because you want to add as much visual interest as possible. It gives, again, some dimension to the overall space. So you'll notice me down on the lower levels a bit too, adding coats, adding flowers, whatever I think may work. So I'm gonna let you guys watch me decorate for maybe a minute or less, and then I will be back to talk about the rest of the process. I've been going through, adding finishing touches, codes, all of that throughout the island. I decided to time travel a little bit farther back in fall, so you'll notice the green change here. I'm in early October now, so around the 14th or 15th. Before I was later in October, and I for some reason just wanted to see what it would look like with these lighter greens. So let me know what you guys think, which part of fall you like better, which colors you like better. But we are really close to being done. I'm not going to decorate every single inch of this area towards the back because it is such a large space, so we'll be here forever, but I am really happy with how it's turning out. So just a couple more finishing touches and then I'll be back to talk about the finished product. Here we are in the final area, and I am really happy with how it came out. I love those sunken waterfalls so much. If we look at my map, it's in the top left corner there where my museum is, and I think that the whole map is starting to come together. The waterscaping looks pretty cool on the map, and if we just look through the area and kind of walk around all the little pieces, I love that you can see different natural elements like the flowers and the bushes on all different levels. It's just fun to kind of run around. I'm really happy also with that idea for the bridge. I think it just kind of breaks up the space even more. And this view right here is actually my favorite view. I think it looks really cool from back here to see the museum just peeking out, and then you can also see all of the sunken waterfalls behind. So I hope you all enjoy this video. I will see you guys next time. Bye!